Hi, my name is Mariana Mujisha. I'm a second year master's student in the Department of Media, Culture, and Communication here at NYU. And I am writing my thesis on the mediation of East African migrant domestic workers, specifically from Uganda and Kenya to Gulf states in the Middle East. One of the ways I learned about what was happening to migrant domestic workers, like many other people, was through mainstream media, mainstream news media specifically. It was very difficult to discern the totality or the entirety of the lives of the migrant domestic workers who were involved in these stories themselves. If it wasn't just to highlight their precarity, if it wasn't just to maybe use that as a policy development advancement sort of tool, there was not much that I got to know about them. And so I became very curious. But then as I used social media platforms, and especially TikTok, I started to notice that there was this niche subgroup on subculture on the internet where migrant domestic workers from Uganda and Kenya and other parts of East Africa were sharing the experiences. They found ways of supporting each other, forms of communality, to express and discuss their experiences, to find ways of maneuvering this very fraught situation. And so that's what I noticed with the videos, that they were even to some extent encouraging other domestic workers to pursue this route, but they're also very, very honest about the cautioning each other about how to be able to work in a home of a Gulf employer and reduce certain risks to the occupation that they're undertaking.
Hello, my name is Hilda Soni. I'm a Kenyan by birth, but I'm currently working in Saudi Arabia as a Kadama. Kadama is an Arabic word meaning house help or housemaid. They mostly call us Kadama or Shagala. Well, if I can recount my journey to this destination, it began back in 2021. A friend of mine connected me. So she gave me this idea and she gave me the agent's number who brought me here. Everything to the point where I boarded the plane, everything for me was free. Once you landed in Saudi Arabia and you start working, they cut your salary, quarter of it. But that is only the first month. When I came here, I actually didn't know anything about Saudi Arabia. All I knew was the negativity, that people are being killed here, that these Arabs are merciless people. For me, I was like risking it. I was telling myself, I'd rather risk it out there than continue suffering in Kenya without a job. I've been trying to search for a job in Kenya. I couldn't find any. So we went for training for a whole week to learn Arabic. We were given hijabs to cover our hair and we were given uniforms. Once you get to their homes, the first month, let's say the first month, you feel like you're part of the family. But once they get used to you, they start showing their true colors. My first employer tried to force me to become a Muslim. Once I denied, I told her I cannot, because all my life I grew up as a Christian. That's when everything started changing. I used to sleep like 8 hours. I began to sleep 4 hours and the work became overloaded. These Arabs, they are the same in manner of seeing the Kadamas. They just see us like we are meant to serve them. They belittle us. They have the mentality of their Kadama or their Shagala is supposed to do everything for them. They don't flush the toilets. You would just wake up in the morning and you're in a good mood and you say, let me start with the toilets today. And you enter the toilet and oh my God, it just breaks the whole of your day. But for them, it's something normal. It's something they're used to. The compound is so big, it's like a stadium. So I have to wash a minimum of 7 toilets per day. And there's no off day. You work from Sunday to Sunday. Most of us are deprived sleep. You get to sleep 5 hours. In my first house, every time you wanted to use the phone, you had to ask your madam for permission. they would switch off the Wi-Fi. So even if you go to your room, you want to maybe to call your family, you wouldn't, because you don't have Wi-Fi. So you just get stranded and you would go for months without talking to your family. I have kids. I am a single mom of two, and I left them with my mom, and I just send money for their upkeep. Socializing, I can't say I have socialized. In fact, I have not seen any Kenyan person since I came to Saudi Arabia, because it's hard to socialize because you don't leave your employer's residence. The farthest you can go is in the Zubala. Zubala is the Arabic word for dustbin. So it's hard to socialize. So for me, it's challenging to be separated from my own culture. Like I miss like going to church. I have not gone to church for 2 years, but I miss that. I miss the community. And how I cope with this separation, we do have groups. We have groups of Kadamas, just women coming together and sharing their experiences, sharing how their day went. So that's how we cope. To my fellow Kadamas, I know Gulf is not the easiest place to be in, since most of us come here knowing it's not like we don't know, we know that Saudi Arabia is not an easy country. Saudi Arabia is a country to be feared. Saudi Arabia, people die. But most of us come here with the hope of like, I can die anywhere. It's not in Saudi Arabia only I can die. You can die anywhere. But not even most of us, all of us who try to come to Saudi Arabia or any other Gulf country come here with an aim, a purpose to change back home, to change the background that we left. And we try as much as possible to even stay here for decades. You find yourself, you said you're going to stay for 2 years, but you continue adding contract over contract over contract. You find yourself 5 years later, you're still in Saudi Arabia. 6 years later, you're still in Saudi Arabia. Why? Because you're afraid to go back to the same situation you were in. You find yourself trying to say, the situation I was in Kenya, I'd rather just stay here, even if it's bad, even if I miss home, even if I have depression. I'd rather stay here and my family is okay. My family gets to eat, my family gets to feed, they have a nice house. So as I would just tell other Kadamas, know your aim, the purpose that you came here to do, accomplish it. And if you feel it's too hard for you, if you feel like you are reaching the point where you want to break down, just pray. Everything starts with prayers and ends with prayers. Just pray, give yourself hope. And if you feel this is too much, just go home. For me, I'd advise them, just go home, try to relax, set your mind together, because for me, money, even Bill Gates is trying to look for money. Who are we? So try to, as much as give yourself hope, watch other people's stories, communicate with people, try to talk out what you're going through, and you'll come to find out that you're not the only person. That gives you strength and more hope to keep pushing on, because we came here to change our backgrounds, and that's exactly what is going to happen. We will not go back to the same situation we were in. Hallelujah. And we are Team Strong forever. We shall not be put down by any threats. And these Arabs, they are just people like us. They bleed the same way, they breathe the same way. The only difference is their status and their nationality. As for that, Team Strong, let's continue being Team Strong, and I know we will beat this together. Bye.
People may not know this, but this is actually like an improvement from a decade, and even we'd say even a few years ago, where their phones were actually confiscated along with their passports and other identifications by the employers prior to starting their work contracts. So this is we could say a marginal type of improvement that's still this still unfortunately entails a lot of domestic surveillance, but also the fact that if the employer catches wind of the domestic workers speaking to either a researcher or a journalist, they are at risk of termination of the contract, which also pretty much means immediate deportation from the Gulf country in which they are working. That deportation will not be funded by the employer. That also means that they will probably be abandoned at the embassy or at the airport. To avoid all that, migrant domestic workers usually avoid any suspicion that they are communicating with outside inquirers about their living conditions.